There you
Okay,
go.
excellent. Well, welcome everybody to Life as a Wave. In this session, we're going to be working on flow, how you flow as a trader. I know that we've all had times in our life where things seem to just flow easily. We go from one problem to another, we solve them. The information that comes in, we are curious about it. We're delighted when things happen. We're not attached to particular outcomes. And as a result, we get a lot accomplished, we get a lot done, and it feels more effortless. We've also had times where we fight our brains. It feels like everything we do, we just ram into a wall. Everything is conflicted. Internally, we're tight. We're less creative. Problems seem to overwhelm us. And as a result, our trading is less productive and a lot less profitable. So the question is before us, can we create flow intentionally? And this is where Carl comes in. And I'd like to introduce you to a good friend and the developer of much of the learning management system and how it all goes together, taking my rough, ugly content and making it into a usable and user-friendly method, Carl Contino. And he has developed Life as a Wave. And I was intrigued by this when he started talking about it because I know that I had issues around feeling smooth, and especially sometimes when things wouldn't go right technologically. Carl would tell me to take a breath because I'd be, damn, we got to get this up, and the people are coming, and we got to take a breath, slow down, and he would put me more into a state of flow. And as a trader, this is really important. So I'd like to introduce Carl Contino, and maybe Carl, you could give us just a bit of your background and how you came personally to Life as a Wave.
Absolutely. Thanks, Richard. And what fun this is going to be. Our very first webinar together. One of
Yes.
many, hopefully, right?
Yes.
Yeah, excellent. Well, the first thing that you need to know about me is that for most of my life I've experienced everything but flow. I like to call myself flow impaired. I have had a number of what I like to call, shall we say, cognitive glitches, snafus, and hiccups most of my life. From the time I was a little boy, and I was a little delayed in my learning and my speaking. I don't think I learned how to speak until I was about 3 years old. And throughout my life, I've come across certain challenges that I found that a lot of people don't have. And so I have worked through using, these glitches and hiccups that I experience on a regular basis. I have put massive amount of effort into trying to resolve this issue. I've read over, 300 books on self-help. Love it all. Taken the seminars. I've tried this, that, the other thing, and very little has made a difference in terms of the flow of my life. And so, at one point, I kind of gave it all up. I let go. I just figured out that there was just no way that I was going to solve this problem, and that I would be stuck for the rest of my life, glitchy and flow impaired. But I'm going to share a little story that I call Bury the Beat. And this is when I was in rock drum school. I'm a musician. I'm going to tell you a little bit about my background a little bit, but first I want to set a couple things up. I was in percussion school, and it was day one of rock drum class. And the drummer for Cher, Mark Schulman, he came in, he walked to the front of the room, and he put a metronome down right in front of me. He said, "Okay, bury the beat." I said, "Bury the beat, bury the beat." He said, yeah. Clap with the click. And if you clap with the clicker at the exact same time, you won't hear the click. And that's how you know you're in rhythm, you're in sync, you're in flow. And you as the drummer need to be able to do that, because the band depends upon your ability to not only be in flow, but to remain there consistently. So I said, okay, fine. So I tried to clap with the click. Now, my brain tends to over-control things, so I was feeling a little nervous, a little shy, a little on the spot, and so I tried really, really, really hard to clap at the exact same time as the click. And I couldn't do it. Maybe once or twice, but that's about it. He said, all right, Carl, relax, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and just let it happen. And for some reason, for about 15, 20 seconds, I didn't hear the metronome. It was as if somebody had turned it off. He said, there you go. You just buried the beat. Wow. Okay, fantastic. All right. He said, you just demonstrated a principle known as entrainment. Now, today we may or may not get into entrainment, but it's what I consider to be one of the most important phenomenon in the natural world that one could ever learn about. It's a fascinating force of nature that will bring one rhythm or pattern into another, kind of like a magnet. And so you will perfectly get in sync with something. Picture you and your partner dancing together. You're in sync, you're entrained with you, your partner, and the music. So it's a very natural ability that's not only in humans, it's in animals as well.
Well, that's a really good point. I'd like to interrupt you here for a second and say
please do.
That is a natural ability that we all have, and that our brain, our glitches, get us out of sync. And so part of it is move back. On the email, I don't know if you noticed, Carl, I asked people if they would give us examples of times they were in sync or in the flow and times they weren't. So can we take a minute to see if anybody has any stories that would give examples of being in the flow and being out of flow?
Absolutely. I want to make sure that this is just a casual conversation more than anything else, and I definitely want to hear from other people. Yes.
Okay, good. If anybody has an example of a time in trading in the markets or other areas where you were really in the flow and you were bearing that beat, like if it didn't feel like you were having to push anything, it's just that you were there at the same time the beat was and things were flowing. Does anybody have an example of that, or an example of a time when no matter what you did, you were just out of sync? And what you can do is click the red pennant flag, and I will unmute you, and then we can hear about your example. So time that you were in the flow or time you were out of flow. Click the red pennant flag, and if nobody clicks, I'm going to start calling on people. So there we go. Fitzroy, thank you, Fitzroy. I'm going to unmute you. Oop, did I do the wrong one? Fitzroy, unmute. Okay, Fitzroy, you're unmuted. A time you were in flow or out of flow?
In flow.
In flow, okay.
There was a period. There was a period of about 10 years from the mid '90s to about 2004 when I was absolutely in flow. I was, I felt like I was walking on water. Everything clicked, everything happened. I got married, had 3 kids, one after the other, 3 within 3 years. We had 3 under 3. We had, we flew all around the world. We bought a nice house, and everything just was in sync, and everything was just so effortless. Nothing was difficult, and I could work 12, 20 hours non-stop without even thinking about it, and without being stressed about it. Mm-hmm. I didn't think I didn't think I experienced what I would call stress now. It just didn't seem to happen. Everything just flowed.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so what did you attribute that to? And Carl, I'll let you take it from here.
What did I attribute that to?
So this is something that you
You know,
just found yourself in, or can you point to some factor in your life or something about your overall mood, your state of mind that might have enticed this type of flow?
yeah, it's difficult to say. I mean, I think
It is.
I think I would say I was a cause in the matter, as they say. I was something to do with it, but I don't really recall anything specific other than just having a lighted an airfield and just, nothing, I was like the Teflon man, as they say. Nothing would stick to you. There was no issues. I had no problems.
Mm.
Everything flowed. Um,
So there was nothing
and
getting in the
I
way.
never, so there's nothing, absolutely nothing getting in the way. I've never
Yeah.
argued with anyone. Money wasn't difficult. Girlfriends weren't difficult. And everything there was nothing that was too difficult. Nothing that was difficult at all.
Well, for me, that's a key phrase, nothing getting in the way. That, for most of us, flow is something that we're naturally drawn to because, as far as I can tell, life depends on it. I think that it's in flow that connections are made. My body gets connected to my mind, my heart. I get connected with other people. Rapport is created. When I'm in a state of flow to varying degrees, also I find that I can concentrate a little bit better. I'm more present to you, what you're talking about, and therefore I'm able to receive information better because I'm connected. So for
Well,
me,
I think
flow is
I'd
the
just
key
like
to
to interrupt you
connection.
and say that's a real critical point in that you're able to receive information from the real world, and that feedback keeps you in
Absolutely.
flow. So I'm
That's
going to
right.
interrupt you, and let's see if we can get a couple more stories here. There's DC.
Hi,
Okay,
Richard.
DC.
Hi, Carl.
Hi.
Hello.
Are you getting a lot of echo off me today?
Just a bit. It's okay.
Just a bit. Okay.
Okay, I
You
haven't
might want
got
to
a
turn down your
headset yet.
speakers. If you turn down your speaker just a touch, that might be okay.
Okay, I've turned them way down from what they used to be. Hang on just a second here.
Now it sounds good now,
Oh, okay.
or almost. But go ahead.
Almost. How's that? A little better?
Yeah, when you're speaking, just go ahead and give us an example of flow or no flow.
Okay. I had assumed that we were confining this strictly to any trading experience we had. I'd like to trade places with Fitz and end up feeling what it's like to be in the flow for years at a time. I don't even think I could conceive of that right now. I'm pretty much at Carl's end of the spectrum, where everything is more of a struggle and I have to really fight. It feels like I'm always going against the flow. But so in trading, of course, that means that every tick that goes against your position is a gut-wrenching experience on a really bad day, and otherwise you're just mildly uptight. But oddly enough, for no apparent reason, a couple of weeks ago, I sat down to start trading, and it didn't seem to matter what prices were doing. If I had a couple losses in a row, it was not a big deal. The next trade ended up being a winner, and nothing particularly excited me or got me upset. It was just a matter of being totally unattached to anything going on the screen and just totally enjoying the process of managing the trade as it moved. I'd never had that before. I would like to experience that for a year or two at a time or more. That would be great.
Okay, I'm going to mute you again to get rid of the echo there. Okay, DC, you said some things that were really, really important, and that is that you were able to. Carl, maybe you could repeat it. There was something he said, and I just lost it. Gosh. Okay, it'll come back. But, being in the flow, what we want to do here, and what Carl's going to talk about in a bit, is how to make that intentional. How to move that from being just an accident or something you notice on some days. Oh, I remember what it was, that you didn't attach to any outcomes. That's to me, an important piece of getting in flow. But Carl can talk about that more. So let's get Lonnie on here, and then we'll let Carl talk a bit more. So I'm going to unmute Lonnie. Okay, go ahead, Lonnie.
I'm doing this because you've threatened us, right?
Right. I totally threatened you.
Well, what I was going to say, I do have times where I feel in the flow, and I sort of identified that it's both a function of my own being in the flow and the market mood that fits with where the times that
Yes.
are best for me to feel that flow. So to kind of pull my idea all together, Fitzroy was experiencing a flow at a time where most of us could do no wrong. I mean, that's kind of how the world was going. Everything was on the up. You know, we had, it was a market mood where, you know, you could kind of even screw up and you could come out of it okay. You could figure it out. Things were moving, and that's kind of similar to the market. There are days where, you know, I have just no losing trades, and then the next day I think I'm doing the same thing, and it doesn't work. So it's both lack of attachment to outcome, being in the personal flow, but it's also the market mood issue that we've discussed.
Well, that's a really good point, because sometimes the market mood will match our strategies and we feel like we're in the flow, and it really helps. But what happens when the world throws us some curves, when there's some difficulties? That's when we get triggered and we get out of flow. And what I hope from Carl, he's going to give us some ability here to intentionally to look at that, so that even when the markets are not giving us that money, and sometimes the markets just hand you money. They just hand it to you, and sometimes they don't. So maybe you could comment a bit, Carl, on the previous two, and how much of I guess the question is, how much of the external world creates the ability for you to be in flow, and how much of it is totally internal?
Great question. You know, I mean, first of all, flow is a pretty slippery experience. You know, it's not something that I can just decide, okay, I'm going to be in flow now. And it's not necessarily something that I can just do this formula of 1, 2, 3 steps and boop, I'm going to be in flow every time. It's slipperier than that. I have found that if I create the right environment, that flow can show up pretty much on its own. Again, one of the tricks is that you cannot necessarily create flow directly, because there's a paradox involved with that. The more you try to be in flow, paradoxically, the less, right? But you can absolutely intentionally focus on some of the parameters at play, some of the elements in your environment, so that flow is more it's more welcome. It's enticed to show up on its own.
Okay, so let's get we got only so much time, so let's get specific. What can we do to create those structures, the environment, the places, or whatever, to help people in the flow?
Well, okay. Now, here's a really important point right now. I can offer tips and tricks and how-tos, but those are only limited in its impact, especially over time. You know, a particular approach might work for a little bit, but then it gets stale and stagnant, and then it just doesn't work after a while, or it just doesn't have its vibrancy or its dynamic nature to produce the same result. So I am a huge believer in understanding the fundamentals at play. And when I can understand the underlying forces at play, that enables me to not only understand what's going on here, but it also puts me in a place where I can come up with my own approaches, my own tools, and keep it fresh and alive. And I can't emphasize that enough, that if we can keep it fresh and alive, especially with something slippery like flow, that can really, really help. So, let's see, what time is it here? So we're 20 minutes into it. Richard, I want to go into some background, some of the fundamentals, okay? And make sure I don't go too long, because you know I can go off on some of these concepts, okay? So, but I can't emphasize enough that if we just take a little step back here, take a look at this thing called life in general, and we're going to add just a couple of layers on top of that. Then we're going to go back to flow and see what it looks like then.
Okay. So I'm going to.
All right.
Do you want the screen?
I am, and I'm going to turn off my camera for the moment so that we can focus on my screen. Do you have to make me the presenter, or I see?
Did. I think I did.
Okay, my role is presenter. All right. Screen share. No, you. Oh, that's right. You need to stop sharing your screen.
Oh, that's right. Right. Okay. There we go. I see your screen.
Okay, and now you should see a white screen with Life is a Wave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And by the way, this is what I call my body of work, Life is a Wave, and it's come from, again, years of struggling with some of these issues that we're talking about today. And so the foundation of Life is a Wave, we start with the word life. And, when I got to the point where I had tried all sorts of different approaches, I had read all the books, taken all the seminars, and I love all that stuff. Great distinctions, great concepts out there, but again, I wasn't producing the results. I was still stuck, glitchy, and out of flow. So, at one point I asked myself the question, I don't know why it occurred to me, but I just was hanging out and I said, well, what does life want? What does life want? What's the main thrust here? What's going on here? And what I came up with is an answer, and, this is just my take on things, but for me it makes a lot of sense, and again, most importantly, it gives me a foundation, a fundamental perspective to play with all this stuff, okay? So I can say that life wants one thing. It wants to move, grow, and expand. It wants more life. Really, really, really simple. So I just say that the overarching theme for life is movement. Can you see this okay on the screen?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we've got a theme now. Does that make sense to you so far? That no matter what is happening in life, there's something related to movement. And no matter what I'm looking for to create my life, whether it be to improve my health, make more money, change a relationship, no matter, pursue a project, start a business, I can put all that under one theme, movement. Why do we want to do that? Because, again, it's going to give us a foundation. That's layer one, and it's going to provide a foundation that will lead to the topic that we're talking about today, flow. And so you got to bear with me for a little bit as I build the pieces, okay? But, Richard, make sure you check in with me if I go off too far on a tangent, okay?
Okay, so, yeah,
Okay.
So what we're going to need to do is keep it moving, and I know you know how to do that, so.
All right, so that makes sense so far? That life wants one thing,
without movement,
more
there's
life.
no life. Heartbeat, blood, feeding yourself, everything depends on movement. Absolutely.
That's right. Okay, great. So now I've got a question for everybody to consider, and it's going to be a really simple question, but I believe it's got profound implications. What happens to your energy if you have a positive thought? Maybe you're thinking about, a date that you're going to go on that night, or when you get home, that apple pie is waiting for you, or you're thinking about your kids playing, or whatever it happens to be. If you have a positive thought, what happens to your energy?
Yeah, it goes up.
Absolutely. When I asked my 8-year-old niece that question, she says it goes up. And if I have a negative thought, obviously my energy goes down. And I've got these little symbols that I draw with. So a positive thought leads to more energy, and a negative thought leads to less energy. And I hope that makes intuitive sense to everybody. I can't hear anybody else, so.
Yeah, I think everybody here is going to agree with you. If anybody doesn't, you can type into the chat box. So I'll monitor the chat box so you can just keep going.
Okay, great. So, point one, life wants one thing, movement. Number two, when I have a positive thought, I have more energy. And when I have less negative thought, I have less energy. Well, as far as I can tell, it also, if I have a positive thought, it also affects my intelligence, my thinking, how clear thinking I am, or muddled, because again, one of the things I experience often is a muddled mind. And so I'm really, really interested in doing things that I can, where I can entice that clarity, that awareness, where I feel awake. You know, there are times when I feel really crystal clear and I'm really present with people and I'm right here, versus I'm kind of out of it and in a haze. So when I have a positive thought, it also, in my mind, increases my clarity. It also improves my IQ in the moment, my intelligence. It also improves my ability to be in flow. And then the opposite is true for whenever I have a negative thought. So we have a baseline now, and you know we can talk forever about the subtleties involved with what I refer to as state of mind. Mm-hmm. But we're going to keep it really brief for now. And I'm going to say that my thinking affects my state of mind.
Right.
And here's a really cool thing. Now, this might sound overly simplistic. However, I believe that there are only two responses to anything happening in my environment. You were talking earlier about, you know, the ability to be in flow no matter what's going on around you. Mm-hmm. If everything's outside of you is going really nicely, okay, great, it's easier to get into that place. But when things aren't going quite as expected, or everything's hitting you all at once, the question then becomes, well, how do I get some type of presence of mind, a decent state of mind, so that I can move and groove with whatever's going on in my life? So, to me, when things are happening, I only have two possible responses in that moment that something's happening. It's either, again, this is going to seem really simple, it's either a yes, this is good, and I open up, my energy increases even just a little bit, and I move towards something. Or I say, no, this is not good. I close off, I go away, I detract. So now we'll connect this, and I'm going to check in with you real quickly in a second. So now we've got life wants one thing, movement. And I'm going to relate it to like a pipe with water going through. Here's the movement. And it's looking for conduits for that movement. But what happens when I have a yes response? Now, this doesn't have to necessarily be the word yes. It's just, yes, this is good, and your body kind of relaxes and it opens up. What happens to that movement in that very second? It grows. It expands.
Yeah, you know, I had a friend who said he had some back pain, and he started just saying yes to it. He just said, okay, I accept this, yes to the back pain. And so I had some lower back pain the other day, and I says, well, what if I just say yes to it? And it's not like, yes, I want it to go away, but yes, it's okay that it's there, and yes. And I found, I don't know if the pain was lessened at all, but my experience of it, I can't quite describe it. It didn't, it was just
different. It didn't have you. Yeah, you're still experiencing it, but it was, you weren't dragged down by it maybe quite as much,
right,
or as enveloped in that negative experience.
Well, exactly. Right now I'm working on a lesson on how to manage loss, and I'm pretty well wrapping it up now. It should be out in a couple of weeks. And part of it is if you tighten up when you have a loss, when you say no to that loss, when you fight it, when you beat it yourself up and you go into that process, I think this is the same thing here. It's constrictive.
That's it. That's exactly right. And so what happens to the overall state of mind when you're in the know? It goes down. And what else goes down? My ability to think, my energy, my clarity, and my flow.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Right. So I think, this is really going to be intuitive for most people. And so the question is for me, and I know this is the hard question, is what can we do to intentionally stay in flow? Like you say, well, if we have negative thoughts, think positive thoughts. But I'm not a big fan of just, everything's wonderful, think positive thoughts and things are great.
Nope. Definitely not into quote-unquote positive thinking, because that tends to imply that, I've got blinders on, like, it really sucks right now, but I'm just going to say, yay, everything's great. I am not talking about that.
Oh, good.
And I'm not even talking about changing my thinking.
Okay.
I am talking about honing the skill of observing the mind. I like the notion of watching my mind like a movie, and I think it's the number one skill for myself to learn and for anybody to learn, because the mind is a slippery, trickery thing, isn't it? It not only creates interpretations of what's going on, ending up in either, yes, this is good, or no, this is really bad, but it puts us inside of that reaction. It writes a story to whatever's going on, and then it puts us inside of it, and it's really, really, really good at doing that, isn't it? It makes everything that it comes up with as real. That's the central issue, right there.
Absolutely agree that in fact, we're going to have a lesson later on mind maps and reality. More and more neuroscience shows us that our beliefs are just stories we make up, that they videotape things, they check people's memories. We just make things up. We make distinctions because the brain wants certainty. And life is, like you say, it's a flow. It's constantly moving. It's growing. And as we try to put it into a box, we create, I think, is the lack of flow. So I'm really with you right here, Carl.
Excellent.
Okay, so life as a movie is an excellent metaphor, that if you see what your brain is doing like a movie, I mean, when you go to a movie, you can enjoy the story, you can cry, you can cheer, you can feel all that, but it's a movie. What if you knew all the thoughts in your brain were the same things? They were just a movie. That means you've now got a higher level of awareness, and you're not reacting to the movie like it's reality.
Absolutely. And again, to keep connecting it with what we're talking about, so it goes something like this: watch the mind like a movie, be in the yes of whatever's going on, and when I am in the yes, it raises my state of mind, which increases my tendency to find flow. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So watching my mind as a movie gets me outside the effects of my mind, therefore enabling me to get out of my default reactions, and I can learn how to be in the yes of things that I don't like. I'm going to tell you right now an example of that.
Okay.
And I'm going to turn my camera back on.
Yeah, before we do that, let's see if we have anybody that wants to raise a flag and make a comment so far.
Oh, yeah, please.
So if you have a comment on this, and remember, out of different perspectives, we get purification of truth. So don't hesitate to argue, to say this is all woo-woo, or give examples of how of your experience with this that make a lot of sense. So if anybody wants to click on the red planet, and we'll unmute you, and you can make a comment on where we go before we go to the next steps. So anybody? Okay, there's DC. Let me unmute you. Okay.
Yeah, the only thing, I've had a couple of points in my life where I was pretty low, and the only thing left to do was just to let whatever negative feelings or whatever it was that I felt it was just crushing me at the time. The only thing I found that helped me out of it was to, I've heard it referred to as welcoming, but just total acceptance of whatever it is, no matter how bad it feels at the moment. And I let it wash over me until it dissipated itself.
That's being in the yes. Precisely what I mean. Absolutely. I'll tell you what, I'm really good at being in the no. When I have a physical sensation that I don't like, I'll give you an example. Before our call today, I had adrenaline going through me, and I don't like that feeling. I don't like the butterflies. I don't like the nervous feeling like I've had too much coffee. I hate it. So when I'm first feeling it, my initial response, no. I tighten up and I suffer. And it's a paradox. It kind of like feeds into itself, and it can make it worse. So for about maybe 5-10 minutes before this call, I laid down and I felt the adrenaline going through me. And I just let it kind of like go through just how you were describing it, actually. And I kind of like let it wash through me. And then I did something I like to call a reframe. And I can get into that now or maybe in a little bit. Actually, you know what? Let me use this as a segue to go off on that, my favorite approach, actually, the reframe. If the game at play is to go from the no to the yes, and again, this is not about liking something, it's not about accepting, this is not about, oh, this is really good. No, it's just simply I'm grooving with it, I'm riding with it, even though it sucks. So I don't have to like it, and this is not positive thinking. It is really the difference between this and being present to it. Right now I'm sitting in a wheelchair recovering from a tiny little ski accident I had in January. I've been skiing for 44 years, and somehow I've never gotten hurt until this one day. I was going off of a jump, and I slipped on some ice, and I ended up 20 feet in the air, and I came down on flat ice, and I ended up breaking 7 ribs, punctured lung, broken collarbone, fractured hip, dislocated. So I'm going to be in a wheelchair for a couple more months. And wow, what a beautiful opportunity to kind of practice what I'm preaching here. How the hell do I get into the S of this? So when it first happened, I remember laying on the ground. I was looking up at the stars, and I couldn't breathe, and my leg was all bent and contorted. And initially, I was in the know of that experience. Like, I was in panic. This sucks. Oh my God, what am I going to do? And then I was picturing myself in a cast from like head to toe with 2 little eyes for the next 6 months. And but at some point when I got into the helicopter, they had to fly me to the hospital. And when I got in the helicopter, I remembered, that's right. Get into the yes of this. This sucks, but man, let's see if I can do that. And so I did a reframe question. And if I give myself permission to do it, I can really play with it. And I do. I give myself total permission to play with everything and anything that happens in my life. So I ask myself a reframe question. What do I like about this experience? Which, again, might sound crazy at first, but if you're willing to play with it, and the mind will just kind of like go with you, and it will give you some answers. So what's the opportunity here, and what do I like about it? And so while I was in a helicopter, I came up with a list of 5 different things, like, wow, look at this technology. Isn't it amazing that we've got trained people to take care of me right now? And here I am in this helicopter. They're flying me to the state-of-the-art facility where they're going to take great care of me. And it just went on from there for the next month while I was in the hospital. I found myself in more gratitude than anything else, and it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me in my life. As Richard knows, I've done a lot of hiding in my life, and it's very comfortable for me to be a cave dweller. And today, right now, this is my very first live webcast. Now, I've been working with people for years, both as a web developer and as a life coach. I love helping people, get in tune with what they're about, what they want to create, and I love partnering with them in any capacity I can. But I've been working on this life as a wave thing with myself and with my clients, but I've never put it out there. And so today, right now, is my very first time doing so, and I attribute it to my ski accident because it's woken me up. It's given me an appreciation and for a lot of things, and it's kind of like, Carl, it's time. Let's put yourself out there and let's have some fun.
Right. So if we have a trader that's experiencing a series of losses, that certainly can't have more intensity or be more impactful than you laying in the helicopter looking to the sky. So let's look at, does anybody have any reframes, anything that you've learned to do to reframe a terrible trading situation? And or if you have a difficulty, maybe you can talk to Carl a bit about the challenge you face trying to reframe, and maybe you two can talk a bit about what you can do or how you can look at things differently. So if you have a reframe, you want to talk about how you've done it, or like to learn better how to do it in the midst of turmoil, raise your flag and we'll open up your mic.
And Richard, by the way, can you still see my screen?
Yes, I can see it on here. Yes, it's still showing.
Okay, good.
Okay, Fitzroy. I'm going to unmute Fitzroy. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I have an issue with the refrain, and my issue is that I think if one is responsible only for oneself, then I think that's okay. You can just cut everything else out. But I feel personally that where you're responsible for other people, then I think that becomes.
I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you said that because that's going to help me clarify something.
It becomes a lot more difficult, and you always that. If I'm just thinking about myself, it's just so much easier than when I have to consider other people who are directly impacted by what's going on.
Right. That implies that I am negating the tragedy, the reality, the challenges, the crises. And here's my opportunity to be a little bit clearer with that. I am not turning my head away from the pain, the reality, the crises. I actually initially will embrace those things and take a hard look at those things and allow myself to feel whatever emotions I'm feeling. But the mind is really, really, really good at that stuff. I think human beings are amazing at focusing on almost solely that aspect of an experience. Whereas if I can free my reaction up a little bit at the appropriate time, after I've honored the initial experience and reaction, there are other facets that are just as real, that within every crisis there are opportunities that I can create from it. I think that's an absolute statement of fact. And so I am not talking about negating the reality and the associated crises. I'm talking about embracing the entire experience. And I'm just saying that the mind is usually not very good at doing that. And so I'm giving it permission to do that a little bit more. Does that
let's look at two situations. One, where you have a leader who you're dependent on, and they know that you're dependent on them, and they hit a crisis, and they tighten up, and they say, I'm responsible for these people. I got to take care of them. And, oh my God, what am I going to do? They start to feel the panic. The adrenaline starts to pump. They start to react. Second leader says, wow, this is interesting. There are some people I care about. How can I be creative in this situation? If you're watching it like a movie, you can then create new plots and more creativity. And the question is, in a situation like that, who would you rather be leader of your pack or the complications? Who would you rather do it?
How about both?
Say
Having
more.
that first, it could be I'm the first person initially, and then I kind of wake up and get a different perspective by reframing or whatever game at play is for the moment, and then I switch into or include, all right, what's the opportunity here? And what can I create from this? So that's my answer. I would rather be both.
Fitzroy, do you have any comments on that?
I haven't found it possible to be both.
Yeah, I don't know that's my experience also.
So Richard, have you been able to turn a crisis into an opportunity? Can you think of an example where you've been able to do that? And mind you, what I'm talking about is not an easy thing. Again, the mind is superb at creating a reality and saying that's what this situation is. So if I have a negative situation and I say this is bad, I have tons and tons and tons and tons of evidence to prove it and back it up. And only when, and I can't emphasize this enough, it's only when I get just how convincing the mind is at making up reality that then and only then I have permission to play a little bit and go into a different reaction.
Yep.
Go ahead.
I have a good example of that. I was trading America Online many years ago, and you guys will remember during the dot-com boom, they had split like 4 or 5 times, and as a result in the options, there was a strike every 1.5 or 1.25, and there's strikes all over the place. And I had gone from leaps to the current. So in the expiring month, I had thousands and thousands and thousands of options positions in every strike. I'd be short 1,000 of the, I don't even remember the prices, but let's say the 65 and a quarters, and then long the 67s, a couple thousand. So what would happen is, on expiration day, as the price approached my short calls, I would be getting incredibly short. If it stepped up another notch, I'd be incredibly long. So all my processes, my fears, I said, I got to stay delta neutral. I got to manage this. And I was in a panic. And finally I said, there's no way to manage this. Have some fun. And so I watched myself go from 20, 30, 40,000 shares equivalent short to 30,000 long. It was an incredibly volatile day. It was going up and down. I was trading up a storm, and it was one of my most profitable. But basic part of it was to watch it like a movie and not take it so seriously.
Yeah.
Okay. Other comments?
And again, the trick at play for me is, listen, my mind is always going to give me whatever it's going to give me, and it's always going to be convincing. Always. But I absolutely am utterly convinced that most of what it gives me is made up. And also that there are other realities that it is not tuned into. It's trying to have me focus on the crises so that I can survive. It's really good at that. It doesn't care so much about, what's the opportunity here? What do I like about this? What can I do with this? It sounds fluffy and whatnot, but it's powerful.
So I think in answer to your question, Fitzroy, the question is, what is most effective for those people who are dependent or care about you, or your situation impacts them? What is your state of mind that you would prefer if somebody were in your position, and what is the state of mind ultimately that will benefit them better? Lonnie, do you want to make, I see you have a comment there. Let me unmute you. Okay, Lonnie?
I think I had myself muted as well.
Okay.
I was just making a written comment because I didn't want to get too personal. I have experienced this, though. What he's saying resonates with me. I agree. I agree that it's very difficult, but it's that moment when I saw what my mind was capable of and what it was doing to me, I guess you would say.
Yes, perfect.
That's the moment that I became more in charge of my own mind, I think. And it was pretty traumatic feelings, very very emotional feelings, and they seemed very real. It all seemed real. I could tell you why it was real. I could tell you the story of why it was real. Then, as I recognized that, sure, it had elements that were real. I wasn't a crazy person making up stuff, but I was making it into something that wasn't beneficial for me. And once I was able to see, reframe, I guess you would, in this terminology, and see the potential that was there, and just the whole picture, it became a totally different story then. And
yes.
So I'm just validating that I've experienced this, and I know what you're saying.
Excellent.
Okay.
You know, you have
Carl,
me
we've
think
got
of,
about 5 minutes before I want about 5 minutes in to wrap up. So
wow.
I know it's going fast. So
Yeah, I want
what?
to give one other quick little
Yeah,
example of something, okay?
that's what I'm.
And
What? Yeah. What do you? If you have 5 minutes, what one thing do you want to get across here?
okay, to go back to the beginning, that we tend to go to flow when there's nothing getting in the way. And the key to that is observe the no's when you're watching your mind like a movie. Honor it. Be with those no's. Be with the initial reaction, but just have it in mind that if you can get into the yes of it, again, it's not accepting, it's not being positive thinking. It is, and when I get into the yes of something, I will naturally get into a higher state of mind, giving me access to more resources to solve that problem or that crisis, and it will lend itself towards flow. In the very least, what it has given me, and I'm going to end with this little quick story, is I've had tinnitus, ringing in the ears, for about 5 years now. And I hear 4 different notes. One is a rumbling noise, another sounds like a jet engine, and a couple in between. And when I first got it, I panicked. I remember laying in my bed, sweating profusely, my heart's racing, and I am scared shitless. I think I am going to lose my mind. And at one point, I don't know why or what, but I decided to watch my mind like a movie, and I did something I call yes it all. It is a simple little exercise where I'm watching my mind, and whatever it gives me, Carl, you're going to go nuts. Uh-huh. I call it yes it all. Yep, uh-huh. Next. You're going to have this for the rest of your life. Uh-huh. Next. You won't be able to get away from this noise in your head. Yep. Next. There's no walking away from it. There's no vacation from it. You're a victim to this. Uh-huh. Next. The panic stopped. I found some peace. The noise didn't go anywhere. But now I was in the yes of that experience.
So what you said is you just noted your thoughts and you said yes to each one of them. You didn't try to stop.
I hear you. Mm-hmm. Next. What?
Yep.
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 And it stops me from going into the waking dream of that thought, because our thoughts will be triggered, and it'll always, always, always initially pull us into its content. And sometimes I have to do that. Sometimes I have to deal with some issues and solve problems. I mean, that's part of living. But sometimes, like when I'm in the middle of a panic state because of my tinnitus, and I can't do anything about it, literally I'm powerless over it, that to be able to watch my mind like a movie, yep, uh-huh, I hear you, next, it stopped the panic. Didn't change my circumstances at all, though. So in the very least, that's the type of game at play and what it can help create for us. In the end, being able to work with whatever's going on in our lives. And you can call it flow, you can call it whatever you want, but for me, it's the ability to create movement in my life, no matter what's going on. And sometimes, like my ski accident here, because of the crises that I've had. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So it seems to me that this is really dovetails well with the work we're doing around loss and the lesson I'm creating, with the awareness lesson we have, making new mind muscles, which is creating new behaviors. What are the other lessons? The self-awareness, even around market moods, about determining what market mood you're in, because you're not bringing the movie, you're not bringing the reality to it, that you're able to see your mind as a movie and allowing yourself to see things as they really are. So there's a tremendous amount of things that dovetail. My guess is, knowing you and our many discussions, that you probably have several hours of different avenues and different frameworks to look at this. Is that right?
Yeah. I can't believe I've actually been able to keep it this brief, actually. And
right.
The time has flown. Wow.
I know you have. So if there's interest, would you be willing to set up maybe a webinar or a discussion series, at a different time than this?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if I told you this, but I've been wanting to, and am now going to start a weekly live webcast, just like this, every week. It's free. And I'm thinking Thursdays at this time. That could change. It depends on what works best for people. But I want to explore these distinctions further. I mean, there's a whole ton. Life as a Wave has got, last count, I think, 200 different distinctions built into this thing, but the fundamentals we've already seen. So there's a lot to play with here. And, I love the concepts, but I want to make sure that we're working with real life situations. And so I invite people to, you can go to my Life as a Wave. We'll give them the link, right?
Yeah, well, I'll send an email out. I'll give them all the links. I'll give them all the information. We'll post this up on our recorded webinars, so there will be no problem in getting the information that people need.
Okay, yeah, and so can you see my screen right now?
Yep.
Okay, so now this is a work in progress. I am just revamping everything with the site. There's going to be a lot of stuff happening, but here, if you go to Programs and Events, go to Life as a Wave webcast series, and you can get a quick little review of it. You can get on the list so that you can be informed of when they are and the theme of the week. We're going to do a lot of playing here, so it should be a lot of fun. And you'll get the Life as a Wave guide, which will give you a nice overview of the different principles at play. And also, if anybody wants to ever have a coaching session, talk about things, see what you're working on, what you want to create. I also offer a free hour. Let's do some
whole
exploring
hour
together and have some fun. Yeah.
Wow, that's really generous.
Well, that's nothing. It goes so quickly, right?
Right. Okay.
So that's it. Yeah.
Well, to sum up, I'd like to say that all the principles that Carl's talking about, the state of mind of being in the flow, are all applicable to us as traders because the market is confusing. It changes its theme, its market mood. Our strategies work one day, they don't work the next. Our information is imperfect. The market is going to hand us series of losses in a row with the best strategies and the best ways to do things. So as a result, we as traders have a very, very challenging task ahead of us, and that is to be able to say yes, to stay in the flow, to look at things as they happen, to accept them, to notice what's going on, to adjust our strategies and have some fun with it. If we're locked into a particular strategy, if a loss upsets us, right away we get out of that flow. So being able to move to that flow, being able to know when you are and when you aren't, I think are really critical to traders. And I would encourage everyone to follow through with Carl and build a practice around this. So we're going to put all the information up. I'll send an email to everybody and links to where to get it all. So any final words, Carl?
I have chills going up and down my spine right now. This is big-time fun, a true honor to be able to have my first webinar with you. I love you dearly, Richard. We've had so much fun working together, and I anticipate a lot more fun together. So,
well, great.
Thanks.
Good. So let's see if anybody has any comments or questions. We're at the end of the hour, but I'm willing to hang around for a little bit if anybody has any questions or comments. Is that okay, Carl?
Absolutely.
Okay. Just raise a flag if you have any questions or comments. Okay. There's one, Sean. I'm going to unmute Sean. There you go. Hey, Sean.
Hi there, everybody. Yeah, look, I just recently come across a guy on the called Robert Lanza, and he talks around a theory that's based on physics, and it's called biocentrism, and it really is a good thing to. It's free. It's on the internet. You just take a look at it. But it actually it's very, very good if you want to take a look at different perspectives of what reality really is. And it's helped me tremendously just thinking about or getting out of that no moment, you might say. But I've done a bit of research on that, and there's also a 5-part documentary on YouTube, and it's called The Holographic Universe, and it sort of like puts some of the science behind those series, and it is really, really a good thing to take a look at. But I just thought people might be interested in that as well.
And I'll put these names out there. This is, you say, Robert Lanza,
Robert Lanza, and the theory is called
Okay.
Lanza.
Okay.
And the topic he is talking about is called biocentrism.
Okay, great.
Thanks.
Yeah, and the other series is called the holographic universe. And it's some of the evidence, some of the scientifically based evidence that they've done, well, the BBC documentary, they partly tap into. It's absolutely mind-blowing, it really is.
Great. Well, thank you, Sean. Appreciate that comment. Okay, any other comments? All right, I'm going to unmute everybody. I think I know how to do that now. Unmute all. So you can all say...
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Carl.
Okay, well, you guys have a great rest of the week. Enjoy yourself, and we'll send you more information about how to follow up with Carl.
All right, thanks.
Take care. That was big time fun.
Good night, all.
Night.
Night. Okay, we'll close it down. Thank you, Carl.